What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more r/slash am I the butthole? If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and longer timeline below. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. And if you are new here, I apologize for the singing. Anyway, let's jump in to today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Firefox 2017, titled, Am I the arsehole for how I punished my stepdaughter for flushing her sister's spices down the toilet? I, male 42, married my current wife when my daughter 16 was 4 and my stepdaughter 14 was 2. They grew up as if they were blood siblings, with occasional disagreements and jealousy issues, mostly from my stepdaughter. 2 days ago was my daughter's dog's 3rd death's anniversary. Usually at that time she'd rather be alone to write poems or look at pictures of her beloved dog. This year she asked me to go with her to visit his grave, which is located in her grandparents' farm. My wife appreciates my daughter's needs to have time alone, but my stepdaughter wanted to come with us, though she wasn't close to the dog. My daughter refused to let her come and only wanted me to go. My stepdaughter threw a fit and insisted on coming. I sat her down to explain her sister's need for space that day. She stopped after that. We left, and 15 minutes later my wife texted me that my stepdaughter had a breakdown and didn't stop crying, then flushed all her sister's spices that were in separate containers down the toilet. They were a gift from my daughter's Asian friend's mum, since my daughter's into Asian food and cooks meals every week. I was stunned. I called my wife but got no response. My daughter asked what's wrong, but I just dropped her off at her grandparents' farm, then went back home. My stepdaughter refused to come out of her room, yelling that my daughter deserved it for excluding her like that. I was pissed. I told her I'd punish her for wasting spices that were important to her sister, that she shouldn't have even touched, by taking from her savings to pay for the damages. But my wife thought I'd only take away privileges, not money my stepdaughter saved. She said that she's still a kid and she won't let me touch her savings, but will pay herself. But if my wife paid, then my stepdaughter will think her behaviour is okay. She also said my daughter is to blame too for not letting her stepdaughter come with her. She acted as if she never goes to the farm, though I take them there twice a month. I argued this was, in my opinion, the right punishment to get this resolved, but my wife said I was only making my stepdaughter resent me because she wants the money for a new bicycle. We kept disagreeing on this, and all I was thinking of my daughter's reaction when I told her. She was devastated, but I assure her I was taking steps to help her replace all the spices she lost. My wife called me cruel. Am I the arsehole? So, to me, in this one, a 14-year-old had a tantrum, then went completely off the rails and destroyed someone else's property, spices, which are, they're not cheap in themselves. And so she knew she was maliciously punishing her sister because she didn't get her way. So absolutely not the arsehole. And your wife is totally wrong for enabling the behavior and letting her get away with it. So absolutely not the arsehole. The mother is the arsehole as well for allowing the behavior. But Christmas 850 says, the consequence you came up with is absolutely fair. Since when do consequences need to be adapted and tailored to the kid's preferences? You also shouldn't be afraid to insist on a consequence just because she's your stepdaughter. You've raised her most of her life. Moreover, what she did was wrong. So she wanted to save up for a new bicycle. Well, her sister wanted to save those spices for cooking a meal. She owes her sister monetary compensation. The whole point is to show her that it's not worth doing something like this again. If your stepdaughter is sad and upset about this consequence, that means it's working, not the arsehole. Type 1 error says, your wife doesn't want your stepdaughter to replace something that she stole. Suddenly her tantrums at 14 years old aren't so surprising, not the arsehole. Whacking says, she had a tantrum, acted entitled and destroyed someone else's property. She knew exactly what she was doing and did so maliciously. Now she's responsible for paying for it, not the arsehole. Aspygirl24 says not the arsehole. At 14, she is old enough to know right from wrong and a bit too old for temper tantrums. I don't see any reason why she shouldn't have to pay for those spices she ruined. It wasn't your wife who ruined the spices, it was your daughter. If she didn't have any money, then removing privileges would be a suitable response, but she can afford to pay for what she has done. In some cases, it might be difficult to replace the spices if they are authentic Asian. Some spices you have to go to a specific place to get. Now, what do you guys make of this one? It's pretty simple to me in that the spices need to be replaced. I think at 14 years old, she should know better, and doing anything to get around that kind of punishment is enabling that behavior. But what are your thoughts on this one? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to the next story. That one also gave me very much vibes of the guy who mixed all the spices in one container. Do you remember that story? Wild one. And our next story comes from Warm Honeydew 3339. Am I the arsehole for telling my neighbour he can't expect me to pick up and take care of his child every day? My neighbour lives beside us and has a 5-year-old little boy, and to put it nicely, he's a handful. Him and my 4 kids are in a summer church program, where they get picked up in the morning, then a bus brings them home to drop them off. They do outdoor activity, crafts, and also some religious activities. My neighbour is a single father. His wife died this year. Well, lately within the week, he hasn't been home when the kids get dropped off, and the little boy tells me that his dad told him to come home with me and my kids so he can play until he gets home. He never even asked me if this was okay. It's been 5 days of this now, and I have to take my kids to a dance practice tomorrow, so I told my neighbour when he picked up his son that he needs to ask first because I have things to do some evenings. He told me I wasn't being understanding of him and that he needed help because his wife died and that he had to work and I could watch him since that I'm a stay-at-home mum. I told him that I was trying to be helpful, but I couldn't be expected to watch him every day because some evenings we have prior engagements and he needed to call a babysitter. He said he couldn't afford one and I'm putting him in a bind. Cheeky bastard. I apologised, but he's angry and told his son that I just didn't want him there and stormed off. Am I the arsehole? Absolutely not. And I knew this was going to be a not the arsehole straight away, but I couldn't help but reading it. Just the absolute audacity of this person. You know, and I'm absolutely sorry that the guy lost his wife and the child lost his mother as well. But it's absolutely not okay to just assume someone's going to look after your child and say, oh, you're a stay-at-home mum, you can look after my kid too. Cheeky so-and-so. You know, it stopped at pretty much, he never even asked me if this was okay, and that should have been the end of it. Absolutely not the arsehole, and he tried manipulating you as well by saying about the whole wife thing. You know, it's tragic, but that's not your responsibility, I'm afraid. I mean, maybe if he asked you, you was kind enough to do it for days already by the sounds of it. Absolutely not the arsehole. Let's check out some comments, because they're going to be very cheeky, I think. Zorgus says, not the arsehole. No one can expect someone to just take care of their own kid like that. You were reasonable, logical, and fair. He needs to contact family or get support from government. Abby Burb says, okay, definitely not the arsehole. He's overstepped so many boundaries here. He's using, taking advantage of, and trying to manipulate you. It would be a different thing if he first asked you, like a normal non-arsehole person would do, and you had the option to accept or not. I'm sorry his wife passed away, but that does not give him free rein to play the sympathy card to get whatever he wants, and then lying to his child about it after? Oh my god. Heliasol says, not the arsehole, your neighbour is a piece of work. Chosen Melon says, not the arsehole, the very least he could have done is ask you. And even without him asking you, you still helped him out as much as you could. His child isn't your responsibility, and if he can't be there when the child gets home, then he needs to work out other arrangements. And we'll have one more from Ishan Shade who says, and quotes, he never even asked me if this was okay. This is pretty much the end of it. He never asked if this was okay. What if you had picked your kids at church for some other reason? What if you were planning to immediately leave after the kids were home to go to grandma's house or something? Not only is it inconsiderate, it could have left his son in a dangerous position. And quotes again saying, he said he couldn't afford one and that I'm putting him in a bind. Then says, not only is this just a completely transparent attempt to make you feel guilty, it's also just not your job to figure out his childcare. Yes, you could help him out, but I can also see why you would feel reluctant to now as well. He should have been upfront about his need for help, and then you two might have been able to work something out. That's on him, not the arsehole. Now, what would you do if your neighbour done this to you? Just sent the child around your house for you to look after? How would you feel about that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to the next story. And our next story comes from Scary Specialist 8561. Would I be the arsehole if I sold my house and left? So I, 29 male, purchased a home in 2019. I had a girlfriend, 24 female, at the time, and she moved in with me. My father, 54 male, met when I was 20. Was having a shoulder surgery around the same time, so I let him stay with me too. We never agreed on a time limit. He helped me redo the bathroom, fix a few things here and there. I never asked for any rent, help with utilities, my property tax, etc. from either of them. I only asked that the house be picked up. Tensions have been high at times, small arguments, things not getting done, pure laziness, etc. Little things here and there. Leaving coffee spots on the counter, walking over trash. One was the first winter, I didn't have an oil tank for my heat, so I'd grab a 20 gal of diesel to use in my home heating system. One morning it went out. It was a little cold, but I can still hear crack addicts live better than this. Fast forward a few months, still the same issues. I finally start a career in 2021. I love it. I work and for my best friend, and it's 3 hours away. I stay anywhere from 3 to 8 days at his place. They get the house to themselves, or paid up on bills, etc. I came back to an unkempt house usually. No food, etc. in the fridge or pantry. I leave money every time I leave for work. Girlfriend and I break up one weekend, a little over a month ago while I'm at work. Tensions high from everything, of course. Well, over the next 3 to 4 weeks, she stays in my living room. Told her she needed to be out, but whatever. Becomes best friends with my father. House becomes awkward and I barely speak to them, and they barely speak to me. Uses one of my vehicles to get to and from work. My insurance. No problem, I guess. Well, I come home at 5 AM, sleep, wake up and clean up the house a bit. Emptying waste buckets, I find a condom wrapper and yes, a condom in the trash bin. Now I have cameras outside. Nobody else was in my home. I shouldn't even have to ask this, but would I be the arsehole for just putting my house on the market and telling them they need to find a new set of living arrangements and starting my life over again elsewhere? Have I been way too nice or understanding? Ask any questions. This was done in haste. And OP does put a comment themselves on here to put some extra info and stuff like that, which we'll cover after the comments, but absolutely get them out your house as soon as possible before they have any rights to your house. Because I think in the US especially, that if they stay for a certain amount of time, they have like tenants' rights or something around those lines. I remember it in other stories, so I may be wrong here, and it may vary from state to state or country to country as well. So I may be totally wrong on that front. But from reading this, did I get that dad slept with girlfriend from the condom in the trash bin? Get him out of there! Don't let him walk over you any longer. But Grace, stronger than you, says, not the arsehole. If you walk through a stream and find a couple of leeches have latched onto you in the process, are you an arsehole because you removed them? Of course not. So why would you think you're an arsehole for cutting off those 2 leeches? Get a lawyer though, because you're going to have to formally evict them, and there's a real danger that they claim squatters' rights or some other nonsense. Scottish Squirrel says, not the arsehole, evict them now. They'll likely make it hard to sell so the gravy train doesn't stop. Don't leave money for food, don't leave your car, etc. Remove luxuries when you're away, TVs, Wi-Fi. Get them the hell out. Aquay says, dude, not the arsehole, you're a doormat. Get the fuck out. Sell, sell, sell. Rambling Writer says, not the arsehole. If it was me, I wouldn't wait till I put the house up for sale. Ask them to get out right now. They have no right over your property. Call the cops if you need support. Then OP's comment on this one was saying, so a little more now that I've been able to get home and read a bit. I've found a place I want up near work. I want to put my house up for sale and do a contingency on the new place. I've yet to speak to them, but my thought isn't to freak out, simply that my life has changed direction and I'm looking to downsize and move closer to work. So I'll be putting the house up for sale and there will be ample time to relocate. But I think it's best we part ways. I'd probably offer to help with a first and security on a decent apartment for one or both of them. I'm not saying they did, but in 2 years, I've never found that in the trash. They're also the same ones I've seen in his room months ago, when I'd go and hang out and chat for a bit, just putting 2 and 2 together. Who knows, maybe when I unleash that I'm looking to sell, their truth will come out. I'm really not that concerned if they are or aren't. I'd just be disgusted as it's in the house I provide for them. This comes after I've caught wind of her mentioning how she could take things from my house but doesn't. Being petty and crashing my car. She knows I love the thing. How I told my father that I told her to leave, and to make sure she didn't take anything she wasn't supposed to. I have cash, collectibles, high-end shit all over that she knows of, which he told her everything I said. Trust me, I'm not paranoid in the least. I want to simply make a profit on my home and swap it for one a bit better. Get rid of my mooches, put all this behind me and be happy. And before we do move on to the next story, do not pay nothing for these people. They've done you no favors. Why would you pay for their security deposit? Oh dear, absolutely. You may go to an everyone sucks here if you was to do that to me. But let's move on to the next story. And our next story comes from Lay. Am I the arsehole for calling my sister a bridezilla and saying her wedding is not worth going broke over? My older sister is getting married in the spring. She got engaged over 5 years ago, had been set to go ahead with a pretty small wedding 4 years ago and then changed her mind. We had outfits bought for it, invites had been sent, the whole 9 yards. Then she decided she wanted bigger and better. She asked me to be her only bridesmaid beforehand, before the cancellation, and after she had decided to go bigger, more expensive, and with more time required of me, I told her I was no longer able to fulfill the role. I mention this because it is relevant for later. Anyway, the wedding was planned for this summer, but then COVID hit and their venue had issues with the dates, so they took a date for March 2022. Things have gotten so out of hand with this wedding. My sister gave us a dress code back in May. Women need to wear pink or blue dresses. All women in the family of her and her husband-to-be. All men to be in a white tux. Girls need to wear pink. Boys need to wear white, including shoes. Then she told us we would need to bring spare shoes. I asked why. She said she had plans they would require a change of footwear. She then wanted my boys in the wedding, but that meant buying $400 sets for each of them, and they are 5 and 1. So we declined that, and I did say the reason we could not afford it. She was told both times. She did not want to offer help with it. Then she hit us with the real kicker. Oh my god, it's gonna get worse. She's getting married in this castle-style hotel, very fancy, very expensive, and quite a drive from everyone's home. But she is not booking them for a wedding suite or a wedding package for room rates. Oh no, she has requested both sides of the family pay for the even more luxurious hotel on the beach that costs $600 a night per person, and to get a suite fit for a family because they don't provide suitable furniture for kids to sleep on. I checked the website and called. It's an extra $200 on top of that. She wants us to stay there because she booked a photographer to take photos at 8 AM the morning after the wedding on the beach the hotel is on. She would also need to be up early for the photos the next day. My husband and I cannot afford it. It's a huge expense. My sister said we're being unreasonable. I said she was being a bridezilla. She told me it's her wedding, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I should do this for her. I told her I couldn't. She told me I should as her sister, as someone who loves her and wants to see her get married. I told her that her wedding was not worth going broke over, not when I have 2 kids to feed, clothe, house, etc. She called me a raging bitch and told me I didn't want her to get married and wanted to shit over everything. That's why I dropped out of her wedding, why I said no to the boys being in her wedding, and why I'm doing this now. She said I was rude to her, calling her a bridezilla, and had shit all over our relationship, saying her wedding wasn't worth spending money on. Am I the arsehole? And again, it's an absolutely not the arsehole. And I'm trying to put myself into bridezilla's shoes here and thinking, how in your right mind can you put these requirements on people to spend this much money on your wedding? I'd be absolutely embarrassed and mortified if I accidentally done this. If you cannot afford to attend something, you cannot afford it. And you thought that sister would step back and say, oh yeah, that is a bit of a stupid idea on my behalf. $400 for each of your kids. Are you kidding me? Absolutely not the arsehole. But let's check out some comments because I'm sure they're going to be spicy. New Red Spider says, not the arsehole. What's her problem? You literally cannot afford it, yet she's still having an attitude. Her childish behavior just proves she's not worth going broke over. Who would force their guests to pay that much? It's ridiculous. It's her wedding, not yours, so you're not obligated to pay that much. And Avast says, not the arsehole, and quotes, "is my once in a lifetime wedding, and therefore I have the right to bankrupt you in order to get my own fantasy down to the last detail." And it says, "Yeah, no, I can't afford that is always a valid reason to decline." Surreal Lemon says, "not the arsehole, frankly, I don't know anyone willing to do all that for someone else's wedding. She's gonna feel silly when her and her husband and the photographer are the only people there." Lol. And Bad Goat says, "not the arsehole, trying to live beyond your means is one thing, demanding that others do is another. She needs to get over herself before the wedding is cancelled altogether. There's no way you're the only one who feels this way." Now, what would you do if someone requested this of you to attend their wedding? Say it was your sister or brother. Would you do it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and your verdicts on all of today's stories. I would love to hear them as always. Thank you so much for your love, time and support towards the channel. It means the absolute world to me and I can never express that enough. You actually change things for me on the daily, and seeing the same people come in with their comments every single day, you know, grinning ear to ear at the moment. So thank you so much for doing you, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much, guys. Much love.